Wisdom. It's an incredibly valuable asset. Some would say more precious than gold. It's attractive, appealing, admirable. Conversely, a lack of wisdom is the basis of immaturity, blind spots, and bad decisions. Wisdom. It can be gained over time, but it can't be rushed. But wisdom can be shared. That's precisely what we are here to do right now. Today, we are here to hack wisdom, to distill it, to understand it, and to process it. Why? To get better at life. Welcome to the main thing. This is your new 9-minute podcast. I'm your host, Skip Linneberg, and I've set out to interview the wisest people I know. We'll see what we can learn from each one when they're faced with an incredibly difficult, soul-piercing question. Hey, welcome to your Wisdom Podcast. I'm Skip Linneberg, and I'll be your host today. Don't hit that fast forward button just yet, because I have two important announcements for you. First off, we're changing our show format. You've come to know us for 9 minutes of wisdom. Now, after 5 years and more than 100 episodes, we're expanding our show to a 25-minute format. Same great guests, more wisdom. Same price, free to you twice a month, more powerful insights, and more stories. In just a moment, we'll dive into a wisdom conversation with our special guest. But next, the second important announcement. I want to give a shout out of gratitude to our newest patron, Brad, from West Virginia. Thank you, Brad, for supporting this podcast with your funding. Not only are you helping to underwrite our costs of production and programming, you are helping to keep this pipeline of wisdom flowing. Thanks to Brad and other patrons, by way of their monthly funding, they're helping hundreds of people discover new wisdom, helpful insights, valuable lessons, and fresh perspectives. All of that helps us get just a little bit better at life. Our special guest today is a new friend, a special human being with the most amazing spirit and attitude, and someone battling a fatal disease. Jon Beck is 7 years into a battle with ALS. As you will hear today in this powerful conversation, Jon is not defined by his disease. Though ALS will eventually take his life, he will not allow it to rob him of his joy. In this uplifting episode today, you will learn the 3 keys to navigating any challenge, to making it through any form of adversity. Our special guest, Jon Beck, explored the Western United States, often by bicycle, in his younger years, until one day he decided to enroll in physical therapy school at Emory University in Atlanta. While there, he met the love of his life, Lisa. Shortly thereafter, they got married and began having kids and raising a family. Jon's nearly 20-year career as a physical therapist was, ironically, truncated by a physically debilitating disease, ALS, in 2017. 7 years later, Jon remains very active in his power wheelchair. He applies his background in biomechanics to good use every day. This despite the initial prognosis from doctors that he might only have 2 years to live. Jon Beck is the proud father of 3 adult children who live near, across town, and far in Alaska. His kids continue to provide tremendous inspiration to Jon, as does his wife, Lisa. Jon spoke with us from his home in St. Albans, West Virginia. Get ready for a big blast of inspiration. Over the next several minutes, you will discover why Jon Beck is one of the wisest people I know. Jon Beck, welcome to the Main Thing Podcast. So great to be with you this morning.
Great to have you here, Skip.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me into your home. Jon, you and I are both fathers, and I know that that's a big part of the joy of our lives and our identity. What do you love most about fatherhood at this stage with grown kids?
The best thing about it now is that if they want my input, they ask for it. And I don't feel obligated to tell them right from wrong anymore.
Yeah. It's different. It's different when they're grown.
It has changed a lot since they were little.
And I'm just on the cusp of that, on the leading edge, just making that adjustment from having kids that were at home and more dependent on me to now my mindset is to pull back, give them more freedom, release control, and let them let them grow and learn and live.
My oldest just turned 30, so I'm living that reality too.
Jon, you were, for most of your professional life, a physical therapist.
Yes.
What made you get into that and choose PT as your profession?
Probably because I'd been a patient. I was athletic and had some injuries, and working with therapists following knee and back surgery was powerful and restored my belief that I could get back to being active. So It felt good to be the recipient of that kind of care. And I've always been fascinated with the body and
how it
the
heals.
way it works. Yeah. How it heals itself if you get out of the way, and how sometimes it needs some help. And
yeah. So you did that until one day when you said your hands wouldn't do what you wanted them to do anymore.
I had become slightly weaker on bike rides, but noticed some weakness in my hands working on our house in Morgantown.
Okay.
And also, we did a family walk at Little Creek Park. It was maybe in the 40s, and I didn't have gloves on. And when we got back in the vehicle, I couldn't move my hands at all.
Oh my goodness.
And those were sort of atypical experiences, but those two events got me seeking an evaluation.
And about how many years ago, Jon?
That would have been about 2015.
2015, okay.
And I didn't get diagnosed until 2016, in this month of September of 2016.
Diagnosed with?
ALS,
okay.
Lou Gehrig's disease.
Tell us a little bit about what you experienced, what the symptoms are like, and some of the things that you have to navigate through.
Sure. It's a neurologic disorder where the nerves that carry the signal to the skeletal muscles in the body are diseased, and they don't carry the signal appropriately, and the muscles eventually kind of shrivel up and die. So obviously it has ramifications for all kinds of things. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't walk. I can bear some weight on my legs if someone is helping me to transfer.
Okay.
I need help to move out of the chair. My hands have gotten quite weak, almost useless right hand, and my left thumb works real well, but most of the fingers on the left hand don't work very well. So I've kind of lacking the opposable thumb kind of grasp, and pincer grasp is quite weak. Additionally, my muscles of respiration have gotten weak. So my numbers on my pulmonary function tests have declined. And I use a ventilator at night.
Okay.
But I breathe on my own during the day with accessory muscles for respiration by bearing weight on my arms kind of instinctively now.
Okay.
I don't really have to think about it.
Makes sense. So is it a progressive thing? It gets worse?
Yes, it's a progressive degenerative disease. And actually in 2016, when I got diagnosed, they gave me 2 to 5 years to live. So I'm knocking it out of the park.
Way beyond that, yeah.
I'm at 8 years now and counting, and nowhere near kicking the bucket as far as I'm concerned. So very, very blessed to be in the world still.
One of the things that you mentioned that you're able to do and that you do pretty much every day is get together with a group of folks in the morning, early in the morning. And one of those folks that you get together with is a gentleman by the name of Andy Malinowski.
Yes.
So Andy is how we're connected, thanks to Andy Malinowski.
Andy is a very thoughtful, intelligent man, and had been through some difficulties quite gracefully despite major challenges. And I loved his willingness to share his journey and the way he shared it. So he's a dear friend of mine. I'm very, very grateful to know Andy.
Andy's a real true friend, and he not only helps me learn new things, but he's got a tremendous sense of humor and keeps me laughing pretty much every day. And we encourage one another through the hard times, and and we distract each other and make each other laugh through the lighter times. 192 extra minutes of wisdom. That's what you get when you become a patron of the Main Thing podcast. Many of you continue to say, we want to hear more from these wise guests. That's precisely what patrons of our podcast get. Exclusive access to bonus episodes called The Whole Thing. These 30-minute special shows bring you a deeper dive into our guests' wisdom. Less editing, more laughter. Less time limits, more stories. Unlock those 192 extra minutes of wisdom for yourself for as little as $9 per month through the Patreon platform. And when you become a patron, you also get access to wisdom essays, behind-the-scenes glimpses, and access to special patron-only wisdom gatherings. Head over to patreon.com/themainthingpodcast. Go unlock your 192 extra minutes of wisdom. Jon Beck, what's the main thing you've learned in your lifetime so far?
Skip, the main thing I've learned in my lifetime so far is that acceptance is the answer to all my problems today.
Acceptance is the answer to all our problems today.
All my problems today.
Jon, would you expand on that for us and take us inside the lovely nuance of that phrase, your main thing phrase?
Well, it's actually helped me to recognize whether or not something that I'm dealing with is even a problem. It makes me think of Scott Peck in the book, The Road Less Traveled, right at the very beginning of the book. He says, life is difficult. However, when we accept that life is difficult, through the acceptance, we're able to transcend the difficulty, and voila, it's not difficult anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I say I don't have problems anymore unless I get up in my head and start manufacturing them. I have difficulties and challenges because some things are easy and some are difficult.
Yeah.
You know, just like everybody else, but it puts things in perspective. And I think it's very much related to expectations.
Absolutely.
If I think I'm going to have a pain-free life, I'm going to be sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
Because life has ups and downs and joys and pains. And I also define other things differently. Like, I love the phrase, pain is necessary, suffering is optional.
Oh, wow.
It means a lot to me because I'm usually doing it to myself if I'm suffering.
Yeah.
And whatever life hands me is whatever I'm supposed to walk through to learn from.
Sure. As you know, and as listeners know, I never know the main thing before I ask that question, and the guest reveals their main thing wisdom to me. But I think this notion of acceptance and expectations, Jon, I've learned to view it as a spectrum. Acceptance on one end, expectations on the other end, sort of a duality. And the more expectations I have, the more I tend to diminish my joy, be let down, be disappointed. But if I can be accepting and just take things as they come and be fully present in a situation, I'll tend to usually have a much more joyful experience, and I'll get much more out of it. It'll be a richer experience. But that's what life, and that's what God has been teaching me, I think, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, this notion of acceptance versus expectations. So it's uncanny that I heard you say that today. It kind of gave me goosebumps.
Great. It made me think of the phrase, something like, my serenity is inversely proportional to my expectations. So
that's a great way to look at it.
The higher the expectations, the less serenity. And the lower the expectations, to me, it relates to an openness and an excitement about, I don't know what's going to happen next. Let's just see. and let me try to do the next right thing in that situation rather than wonder how long it's going to last and if it's going to be comfortable or whatever. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Nike slogan makes sense.
For sure. Jon, your main thing, acceptance, is the answer to all my problems today. If you think back to when that crystallized for you, tell us when that became wisdom truth, you identified it, you latched onto it and embraced that. Do you recall when that was and maybe what was going on in your life at that time?
Well, I think I had the opportunity several years ago when I was unable to continue work as a physical therapist because of the ALS. I had an opportunity to spend more time in quiet reflection, and it didn't come on me all at once at any particular event, but just a few months ago, a dear friend of mine said that the cornerstones or the pillars of his spiritual life, spiritual activities that he engaged in were acceptance, gratitude, and humility. And I'd already been practicing gratitude and working on humility. I'm probably not the most humble person right out of the gate, but I think all three of these concepts are related. Mm-hmm. And when I accept my current circumstances, instead of labeling them as bad and focusing on that, I'm able to take a step back and see the totality of my life and see that there are many things that are good that I should be grateful for, that I could be grateful for.
Yeah.
And that relates to humility, because if I don't have a feeling of entitlement, like, oh, I deserve better than what I'm getting, if I can be right sized and recognize I'm really fortunate to get what I'm getting. I'm getting another day on this planet, and I'm getting the ability to draw the oxygen out of the air still without the help of my machine, as long as I got a little bit of weight on my elbows. And it puts things in a perspective for me that has been transformative. Mm-hmm. And some of the most painful things from my past have been some of the most important
growth and learning.
Episodes.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm right there with you.
Growth opportunities. 8 years ago, when I got diagnosed with ALS at the Cleveland Clinic, at the same place where they had told me 9 months before they were 95% sure I did not have ALS.
Oh, wow.
So that was a bit of a blow to go back in September of that year and hear the news. But
yeah, because you would say, but wait, what about what you told me before?
What about what you said in January, Doc?
Yeah.
I didn't go there because...
So that required a healthy measure of acceptance.
Right. And not that it's easy to wrap your head around some information when there's basically a death sentence tacked onto it, but we were in the parking garage outside the Cleveland Clinic, and my wife had an emotional moment, and what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I said, we're going to go eat Mexican food at that 5-star place on the other side of town, as was our plan.
Yes.
And we just kept it in the here and now. And, to the extent that I'm able to do that, I do pretty well.
Yeah.
And if I look ahead at what might be ahead, it could get scary, but I don't live there anymore. So I'm at peace the vast majority of the time, because,
wow.
The God of my understanding has gotten me through everything with 100% survival rate so far, and I always seem to have what I need to get through the moment. And that's important to mention too. I don't have to accept something forevermore. I just have to accept it here and now.
Yeah. Jon, in our audience right now, someone's listening and they've never thought about this concept of acceptance. What might be some of the struggles they are encountering, some of the pain points and things they're bumping into, which would signal to them, hey, you need to click into this acceptance principle and study it a little bit and get more familiar with it?
Well, I think it's important to mention that acceptance is not fatal resignation.
Okay.
It doesn't mean, oh, well, I guess I'll just throw a blanket over my head and die. God, you take this. It's a courage to shoulder the responsibility that I still have to, for my own attitude and my own actions, which are the only things I really believe I have control over. I don't have control over other people's thoughts or deeds or
their reactions,
responses, whatever.
Their opinions.
No, none of that. I'm just responsible for what I do and the way I think, the attitude that I take to things.
Yeah.
And if I can have a good attitude and do the next right action, that's as good as it gets for me.
Yeah. Jon, your main thing, I love it, and it just resonates with me so deeply. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. How can someone take that main thing, wisdom principle, and begin to apply it to their life tomorrow? How can they wake up tomorrow and take a step down that trail of wisdom that you lit up for us this morning?
I think if one is in the present moment and focusing on the here and now, living where our feet are instead of up in our heads, we will have the resources available to deal with what we're dealing with. And I would just challenge someone that's having a real big problem. Are they in the present, or are they looking ahead and envisioning something?
Yeah, that's great advice.
Mark Twain's quote is one of my favorites. I've seen a lot of terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened.
I love that. Jon, as we wrap up, lovely train in the background here. We're in St. Albans near a wonderful rail line. You can hear that enchanting sound of the train whistle. And it's nostalgic and reminiscent of wisdom there. The train is going on. I wanted to wrap up by asking you two questions. The first is for a listener who has a serious illness or a disease or their family member who's listening right now. Do you have a word of encouragement or some advice from you, what your lived experience over the last nearly 10 years that might help them, might help brighten their day or lighten their load a little bit?
I would recommend landscape mode instead of portrait mode when you're scanning the horizon of your life.
Oh, wow.
And
I love that.
Yeah, if you can back off a little bit and take in the whole picture, you're sure to find something positive on that horizon that you can zero in on if you want. But, the danger of focusing on something unpleasant is that pretty soon that's all I see.
Yeah, it magnifies.
Absolutely. When you put it under a microscope, of course it's going to fill the field of vision. But if I take a step back and broaden my scope, try to find something positive to pay attention to, it balances things out. And I recognize, I got this difficulty in that one, but there's 98 wonderful things to be grateful for. Gratitude actually gets neurochemical changes going in the body. And I don't have to be grateful for every single thing that I could or should be grateful for. But true gratitude for one thing will bring this cascade of events in my brain that end up making me feel better. And there's science that backs that up. And I just think a gratitude list is an important thing for all of us to have on a regular basis. So I'll leave it with that.
Jon, your main thing, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. I love that. I've loved our conversation. I just want to thank you so much for all of it.
Skip, it's been my pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for coming out and giving me the opportunity.
So long for now. Wow, that goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom.